want to welcome everyone to tonight's shir, a very special shir. We have Coach Ratner who came in, Baruch Hashem, is speaking in different locations. And giving Chazaq, he teaches in Aisha Torah in Israel, and Baruch Hashem, he spoke last night for Chazaq and BJX in Brooklyn, BJX. And of course, we're honored, the great honor for the community to have him speak in Queens tonight. I think it's a great show of Achdus. Of course, we have 4 tremendous organizations, institutions that do so much for the community throughout the year. We have the Chazaq organization, we have Project Inspire Queens, we have Emet Outreach, and of course, hosting tonight's event in the amazing, beautiful Shul Beth Gabriel Community Center. And we have this very special topic tonight called Infinite Marriage, Secrets to Lasting Relationships. His book, which he's going to speak about, some part of glimpse in tonight, it's called Infinite Marriage. And the book, I think, there's no copies at tonight right here. It just literally came hot off the press, and of course everyone should get it your local Jewish bookstores, get it on Amazon, get it online. It's an amazing book. It's called Infinite Marriage. And just a quick word just about the different organizations. You have Chazaq, which organizes different amazing shiurim and events, different communities like tonight to give chizuk, and especially with a big focus on public school outreach with after-school programs in 20 different locations, and since 2017 has transferred over 1,500 students from public school to yeshiva. So of course, if anyone knows of anyone who has children in public school like to give them a Jewish education, reach out to Chazaq. Of course, Project Inspire, which is a branch of Aisha Torah. It's just so much tremendous care of an outreach for our fellow brothers and sisters, and of course Emet Outreach, a tremendous organization which does tremendous outreach for young professionals and college outreach, on so many different college campuses. Of course, we all know about the amazing work of Emet and Beth Gabriel Community Center, which is such a place of Torah and Tefillah and Chesed in the community for so many years. So we thank, of course, Beth Gabriel for hosting. And without no further ado, let's all please give a round of applause for Coach Ratner.
Wow. It's great to be here. It's awesome. I'm very excited. It's been a long week. I started in Chicago on last Wednesday. I spoke every single night, and once I got to New York on Sunday, I started speaking twice a night. I have it easy tonight. I have you're the only class tonight, so if we have time afterwards, you can ask me questions. I'm happy to answer. I grew up in the DC area. I was not raised in an observant home, and I started learning through my Rabbi Yaakov Plotnick and Lori Plotnick, and eventually moved to Israel in 2019, started teaching Aisha Torah, and now I'm here live. I'm really excited. So why am I here tonight? So I was talking to my wife, and we've been married about 5 or 10 years at the time, and I said to her, why is our marriage equal to everybody else's? Like, you have all these marriages today in the world. They're dysfunctional. People get married 5, 6 times, especially people from Hollywood. You have people with abusive marriages. Why is our marriage equal? There should be an upgraded marriage, what I call marriage 2.0. Just like you upgrade your phone, you should be able to upgrade your marriage. So I came up with this concept of what I call the 4 phases of love. And we're going to talk about the 4 phases of love today. And the purpose that I'm here tonight, I have one goal. My goal for you is to be in a passionate, loving relationship with one person the rest of your life. And if you're not, I failed, and I have no intention of failing. You guys want that?
One class?
And one class. We're going to get in one class. I give her a lot of information. Last few nights, people taking notes, but everything I'm going to say tonight, plus a lot more, is in this book called Infinite Marriage, The 4 Phases of a Loving Relationship. It's available through Mosaic Press. I saw it on Eichler's today, and it should be available in Jewish bookstores and on Amazon. Maybe by the time I'm finished tonight, we'll see. If you take 100 marriages in the world today, and I'm not talking in the frum world, because most of my talks that I give at Aisha Torah are to secular audiences, but if you take 100 marriages in the regular world, how many get divorced? 50, most of them. 50%, 60, 65, 65, 70, 70. You get it. What? It's okay, keep making jokes. I like that. 60%. Of the ones that are not divorced, of the ones that are still married, how many of them do you think are in passionate, loving relationships?
0.
We have 0. 1%. Okay, you guys are being a little harsh. If you get married to 10%, if you get married today, based on statistics you guys are throwing at me, I'm going to be generous. You have less than a 1 in 5 chance of having a happy, passionate marriage. That sounds great. Let's all go out and get married, right? Let's get married. Sounds great. No one walking down the aisle, they're saying to themselves, we're in love together. We're in love. We're not going to be statistic. And they walk down the aisle, and they stand under the chuppah, and they're going to fail most likely. It's because they don't have wisdom. You know, it's interesting. When you get a driver's license, I have 5 kids, Baruch Hashem, in Israel. My kids, you know, because it's Israel, I don't have a car yet, but like my kids haven't gotten a driver's license yet. I have, I think, 2 that could get them. But like, you get a driver's license, you got to study and practice and take a test. You want to get a real estate license. You want to get a license for law. You want to become a doctor. You got to learn and learn and learn. Yet to make, what is the biggest decision you're going to make in your life? Marriage. Who you're going to marry. Yet people go without any wisdom, no test, no class. They go to a rabbi and they get married and they wonder why they're in a horrible relationship. You know, I think it's funny because like most people go to the hospital for have babies. We didn't. We liked having it home. You know, why go to a hospital where that's where sick people die, right? You know, why go there? So they hand you the baby, and all they require is that you have a car seat, nothing else. I'm like, where's the instruction manual? Where's the instruction manual to have a passionate, loving relationship? So we're going to talk about the 4 phases. Phase number 1 is what I call the crush. This is when you go out with a guy or a girl, and she's kind of cute, and she makes you laugh, he makes you laugh. You're like, you know what? I can see dating this person. Now, it's okay to have the crush. Sometimes people confuse it with infatuation. Now, infatuation has a negative connotation, but sometimes you need that infatuation in order to get to love. Now, I want to say one thing, and this is unusual, but there is a way, and it does happen, you can get married without being in love, and love will follow. And we see this in the Torah, when Eliezer was looking for a wife for Yitzhak, and he prayed, and he was looking for 2 characteristic traits. One was kindness, and one was awareness. And Rivka came up, saw that he was thirsty, gave him water, and gave his camels water. She noticed that the camels needed water too. That took some sort of awareness. And then the Torah says, Yitzhak married Rivka. And the next line is, Yitzhak loved Rivka. So he married her before he loved her. I came up with the concept because we have a lot of people that come to my house who are young students, and a lot of them, they want to get married. They say to my wife, we're ready to get married now, can you help us out? Like, who are you looking for? Well, he's got to be cute and learns, and a Talmud Chacham, and have money, and whatever they're saying. And they don't have a clue what their characteristics are looking for. And by the way, when most people do state their characteristics, who are they talking about? Because who do you love the most? Yourself. So people usually list characteristics that they already have. But you don't need any more of you. You already have enough of you. So I came up with a short worksheet. It's in this book, and it's also on my website, coachratner.com, for free. You just download it. And it helps clarify the 10 characteristics that are good for you in a relationship. Now, that is unusual to get married without being in love. But some people do it. It is possible. But if you're not one of those people, you have to have the crush, the infatuation. It's okay. That's going to turn to love. And then we get to phase 2, which I call the research phase. The research phase is when you're learning about the likes and the dislikes of somebody else. It's a very exciting time in a relationship because everything's brand new. And it's interesting, when I try to set people up in America for dating, they'll say to me, I'm seeing someone already. What does it mean when someone's seeing someone? They're dating one. In Israel, they say, we're busy, right? That's what they say. We're dating someone. What should they say instead of seeing someone? Because when you've seen someone once, what is there left to see? They have a red dress, they have a blue dress, they have a green jacket, they look the same. What you should be saying, I am listening to somebody. Because listening is how relationships are formed. If you've ever been in an argument with somebody and you're yelling back and forth, and when they're yelling at you, what are you doing in your mind? You're not listening to them. You're formulating a response in your head. You're not really listening. So we have 2 kinds of listening. Hearing and listening. We say it twice a day in Shema. Shema v'tishma'u. Hearing, you shall listen. Hearing, it goes in one ear out the other. Go jump in the lake. Listening, internalizing, understanding it. And this is one thing we have to do when we're dating, especially this side of the room. We're not as good about listening as this side of the room. Which, don't worry, I'll beat up on them also. But it's interesting, the word listen and silent have the same exact letters. I was in my early 20s. Like I said, I wasn't raised in an observant home, and I was dating a lot, and I couldn't get a second date. So one of my best friends said to me, don't talk, just listen, and the women are going to love you. And guess what? He was right. Because women connect through talking, and we have to connect through listening. If you go on a date with a guy and he listens to you and understands you, you're going to love him, generally. I'm making a generalization. That's phase 2. Phase 3 is what I call the commitment. Now, for my vernacular, that means marriage, but I write my book for the world, so I put the commitment. But it means marriage. Now, this is where the hard part is, because I was teaching in Chicago a few days ago, and there was a nice young couple. They've been engaged they're not religious, but they're a nice Jewish couple, been engaged for a few months. I go, what have you guys been doing for the last few months? Oh, we're planning the wedding, we're figuring who's going to come in the A list, the B list, the C list, where the event's going to be, the caterer, the theme. I said to them, what do you think you should be doing? They go, I have no idea. I go, how long is your wedding going to last? 5 hours max. What you should be planning is the rest of your life together. The day you get married is the day the hard work starts. If you've ever watched a romantic comedy from Hollywood, what's usually the last scene? It's the marriage scene. How can they never show 10, 20, or 30 years later after the wedding? Because it wouldn't be a romantic comedy, it'd be a murder mystery. The day you get married is the day the hard work starts. And this is why I came with the fourth phase. I'm going to ask a question. Who here wants to get married? A lot of hands go up, right? That's easy to do. I could have a line of people outside this door willing to marry you. Easy. Marriage is easy. It's the next phase that's harder. And this is what I call the phase for never leaving. Never leaving is the point when you get into a relationship, usually after 5, 10, 15 years, where you realize that there is someone better in almost every characteristic that you want in a relationship. Someone's not as angry, someone's a better cook, someone's got more money, someone's not as fat, someone's not as skinny, someone opens up more emotionally, someone who's nicer, whatever it is you want. There's someone better in every single characteristic out there. But you realize the person you married isn't perfect, but you realize they're perfect for you. And that's called the phase of never leaving. So what's the difference between the commitment and never leaving? You're only committed to things until you're not committed anymore. I mean, how many times have you been committed to something? I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to lift weights. I'm going to eat vegan. I'm going to stop smoking pot. I'm going to eat vegan while I'm smoking pot. I'm going to keep kosher. You're only committed until you're not committed anymore. There's got to be more to a marriage than just the commitment. And I call it phase 4, never leaving. How are we going to get there? Okay. One thing I learned at Aish Torah, Rabbi Weinberg says, define your terms. So you're going into a relationship with your definition of marriage and love from what you've seen from your family, and the other person has their definition and vision and perception of love from what they've seen. And if you don't match, you're going to have to take a message from me. Tell my mom I'll call her back. You're going to have a hard time. So who here wants to be in love? Want to be in love? Okay. You want to be in love? Okay, tell me what love is. Sure. Imperfections. You're pretty good. Go ahead.
Accepting the person for good and bad with their imperfections, and also working on things.
Yeah, you always have to work on things, for sure. Both are very good. So I'm going to give you what I call, and many people, no one said this yet, but what I call the feeling of love. Because many people say, this is what it feels like to be in love. The feeling of being in love is wanting to give without getting anything in return. Whereas infatuation is a momentary desire you have in the brain that someone has something you want. Rabbi Twersky calls it fish love. What is fish love? Anyone here like salmon?
Yeah.
You like salmon? How do you like it cooked?
Raw or cooked is fine.
Raw cooked, great. Now, if you really love salmon, you wouldn't eat it. You wouldn't kill it. You take the salmon, you put it in a bowl of water by your bedstand, you read it fish stories at night and take on fish play dates. You don't love salmon. You love the pleasure that salmon brings you. That's called infatuation. Real love is wanting to give without getting anything in return. But the definition of love is a little different. The definition of love is the emotional pleasure you feel when you focus on the virtues of another and you continue to associate them with those virtues. Again, the definition of love is the emotional pleasure you feel when you associate someone with their virtues and you continue to focus on those virtues as you age. Another way of saying it, there's a reason why you fell in love. What happened to those reasons? Did you stop focusing on them? Did you start focusing on the negative characteristics? I'm gonna give you an analogy. There's a TV show called Chopped. Did anyone hear of Chopped?
Yeah.
Right, so you have 4 chefs that come onto the show, and they have to make a meal, like an appetizer. And they start the contest, 20 minutes they have to make an appetizer. Now they start off, when they start the time, they have this basket full of very unusual ingredients that they must use in their dish. These are things they're not used to cooking with, like snake meat and squid ink and yakima powder and snail urine. Now, who cooks with snail urine, right? No one does, right? So they have to use them in their dish. And the same thing with marriage. You're going into a relationship, you have your basket full of things, like maybe anger issues, mistrust issues, dysfunction, and the person you're gonna marry has their own basket full of stuff. And you try to cook in the kitchen together, so to speak. And you try, and you try, and you try, and sometimes you can't, and sometimes the relationship doesn't work. And this is why you must focus on why you fell in love in the first place. Question, yes?
But don't you think in order to get the relationship to work, you have to like work on yourself first?
We should always be working on ourselves. Yes, well, we're not going to get into that concept, but the idea that I have a book coming out later this year on self-esteem. It's called Never Feeling Loved Again, because so much of problems in relationships come from people not loving themselves. Because you can't love somebody else unless you love yourself. That's a fact of life. If you don't love yourself and you think that marriage is going to make you happy, not only are you going to make yourself unhappy, now you're going to make someone else unhappy and the relationship.
Wait, it's called Never Be Loved, I'm sorry.
It's the title is still in flux. Yesterday it was called Unloved, the strategies to create low self-esteem, and today it's called Self-Esteem, Never Feeling Loved Again. I changed the title today. It's still in flux. So you have to define what love is. And if you don't agree with my definition, it's fine, I don't care. But you're going to date, you're dating someone, and you want to marry them, you should at least have a common definition of that word love. Now let's talk about, yes.
Oh, sorry. My question is that the concept of love, if you are going on a date, you are attracted to this person, how come most people don't view love as love, but something else?
I don't know. Well, they confuse it with infatuation. Let's get into this. Okay. So there are 3 questions you must ask before you get married. 3 questions. Question number 1, am I physically attracted to them? Am I physically attracted to them? But that doesn't make them physically attracted to anybody else. There's an idea that I talk about, it's called the 3-day rule. The 3-day rule states you should date someone at least 3 times. Obviously, if they laugh like a hyena, they can't stop talking about their mother, they pick their nose, they live in a treehouse, whatever, stop dating them. I understand that. But you've got to give someone 3 chances because you don't know someone after 1 date. I have an idea called first date bias. First date bias is that, because when you date someone the first time you see them, what you have to go on, you have one thing to go on is how they look, and that's it. You don't know them. If they look good, more likely a second date. If they don't look good, less likely a second date. The more you know someone you like, the better looking they get. The more you know someone you like, the better looking they get. And the exact opposite is true. The more you know someone you don't like, the uglier they get. There are people in Hollywood, Angela Jolie, beautiful actress, right? There are guys that can't stand her. Brad Pitt, good-looking guy. There are women who they want to vomit when they see him. And he's good-looking. And I see for every beautiful man walking down the street, for every gorgeous girl walking down the street, there is someone that's sick of them. Looks only go so far. So you have to get to know somebody. When I used to date in my 20s, I was so nervous because I was like a little bit of a messy eater, like a little slob. So I wouldn't go to like a pasta restaurant. I would take someone to like a restaurant to have a salad. And when I ordered the salad, I'm like, you know what? No dressing because it would spill on my collar, and forget the avocados that get in my teeth, and forget the peppers because it gets stuck in my if I'm that nervous on the first date, are you going to get to know me in the first date? Not a chance. You got to give at least 3 chances. You've been missing out on the love of your life because you poo-poo them because they're 5 pounds overweight or something. I have a whole topic in the beginning of the book talks about we have so many choices nowadays in life. We're not willing to settle. It used to be when my parents met in the early 50s. If they were Jewish and they had a job and they breathed, you married them. That was it. Nowadays we have so many because we have so many choices. We're not willing to settle down. It doesn't make us any happier, by the way, with more choices. It's like if you go to a restaurant and they have all these menu items, you sit there and you can't decide. But you go to a restaurant that has like 6 items, you can decide, and you're usually happy with what you get. You must be physically attracted to the person you're going to marry. Remember, you've probably gone to a wedding, of a friend of yours, and you saw the groom for the first time, and you're looking at the guy, and you're like, oh my God, he looks like Freddy Krueger. And the reason is because you don't know him like she knows him. The exact opposite. You might have gone to a wedding of a friend of yours and you saw the bride for the first time. You're like, oh my gosh, she looks like a Miss Piggy. Because you don't know her like he knows her. So you must be physically attracted to them. What doesn't make them physically attracted to anybody else? You're the only one that must be physically attracted to them. And the more you know them, the more emotional connection you have. I'm going to give you the overall what we're talking about today. It's called PIES. PIES is an acronym for physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. These are the 4 different kinds of connections we want to have to our spouse. And the emotional for the woman is the most important. We're going to get into more of this. We're going to get to the second question. The second question you must ask before you get married: do we share common meaningful values and goals? Do we share common meaningful values and goals? Many people get married because they want to have children, which, by the way, everyone should have children. May you all be blessed with a lot of children. Amen. But they've been married for 25 years. Their kids have left the house, and they're staring at each other in the kitchen, wondering why they got married in the first place. Because their reason for getting married is out the door. Many people get married, they meet at running clubs, they meet at softball games, they meet at whatever, Pilates, yoga, and working out is their purpose for getting married. And of course, as you know, if you're married, if you've worked out with your spouse before you get married, there's no chance after you have kids that you're working out together, right? It's not a chance in the world. And you get aged, you get injured, and if that's your reason for getting married, that's not a good reason. Must be common, must have common, meaningful values and goals. Must be more than just physical. I was in LA 2 months ago on a business trip, and Asia Torah called and said they'd like me to go to Miami. And they had like this donor thing in Miami, and I didn't really want to go. And they said, we have a couple flying from LA to Miami on their private jet. We can get you on their private jet. So I said, fine, twist my arm, we'll go. So I flew a private jet from Van Nuys Airport to Miami with this couple. They're in their 60s. They're not religious, but they have a common purpose. They have meaning in their life. They're not religious. Their common meaningful purpose is to help communities. They help Chabad in LA, they help with the schools called Jets, they help with Asia Torah, and they're very big in conservative political movements. And they're very involved. That's something more than just physical. Of course, in our family, we have God in our life. We have Torah. It binds us together. They say that families that pray together stay together. And there's some truth to that. So you must have something more than physical, common meaningful goals and values. The third question is different for a man and a woman. The third question that a man must ask before he marries a woman: am I willing to make her happy the rest of my life?
Oh, I like that question.
Thank you. Am I willing to make her happy the rest of my life if, fill in the blank. Am I willing to make her happy if she gains 50 pounds? Am I willing to make her happy whatever you can think of in your mind, whatever it is? You have to be willing to make them happy the rest of her life. I know some woman might be saying, well, why can't I make him happy? If you make her happy, she's going to make you happy.
Happy wife, happy life.
That's right. The question that a woman needs to ask for a man, and I didn't know this. I mean, if you're like in your 20s or 30s, you might not know this. The third question that a woman must ask before she marries a man: do I respect him? Men need to be respected. Huh? Did you say amen to that?
Yeah, proves your point.
I didn't hear him. Men must respect their wife, for sure. But there's a different need there. Women need to be loved. They want to be respected, but they need to be loved. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Respect is more important for a guy. If you're a girl and you're dating a guy and he wants to go to Colel and you want him to go work on Wall Street, and you don't respect that, that's going to be an issue. Or if he comes home and plays with Lionel Trains for 3 hours in the afternoon, and you don't like that, that's going to be an issue. That means wait a second. I'm going to have to wait on questions, so I got to keep my train of thought going. I want questions, I do.
If a guy loves me but doesn't respect me, then that's not love.
We're going to get into this more, okay? That's a comment, not a question. Respect. We need to be respected. I was coaching a girl recently at Asia Torah, and she was in the seminary, and she's wicked smart. She's like 24, 25, good looking, smart, like really smart. And she was dating this guy for 2 years, and she's in love with him, she wants to marry him, but she was complaining that he's not that smart. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, he's not just the same intellect. Remember, I talked about physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. By the way, physicality must always. Intellect doesn't have to be equal, but needs to be close. Emotional, especially for women, is the most important thing in a relationship. And then spiritual. So I said to her, is he in Jerusalem? She said, yes. I met with a guy. And he was a sweetheart. I mean, he's kind. He's going to make her happy. He's got all the things going for him. But he's a little slow. He was, you could tell, just not quite there. Just not quite sharp. And so I told her, I said, this guy's pretty good. You should try to make this work. I mean, he's a catch. And so 6 months later, I get a call from her. She's back in the United States. And she says, I'm struggling. So I asked her these questions. And when I asked her, do you respect him? She cried. I said, this guy's going to make a great husband for someone, just not you. And she said to me, can I date him for 2 more years till I finish college? I go, no! I go, you can't marry this guy. This relationship is not going to work. A woman must respect her husband. I'm going to talk about the 4 A's in a relationship because, when I got married, we were not religious when we got married, and as we started growing, we started coming close to the Torah, and our marriage got better and better. But then I started bringing in certain things into my relationship, and I call the 4 A's. This is called attention, affection, appreciation, and awareness. And I call it the 4 A's because it's easy to remember. I like things that are easy. I use acronyms. I think songs. I'll sing some songs for you tonight. I like this because attention, affection, appreciation, and awareness. What's attention? Our wives need our attention. We need their attention too, for sure. But it's a bigger issue for us, especially if we work. So when we come home from work, here's a trick for you. When we come home from work, what you should do is put your phone down, go to your wife, and you're going to ask her 3 questions. Now, this is very difficult for us, because when I used to come home from work when I lived in Maryland, I wanted to grab a beer and sit on the couch and watch ESPN highlights. I don't want to. My father used to come home from work and he would putter in the garden for half an hour and then take a nap and come for dinner. We don't always want to come home and talk to our wives. Why? Because we have a lot of stuff on our mind. We have stuff. See, men like to share ideas. Women like to share feelings. And we have to see their perspective. And we have to make the effort to get connected to them emotionally. Because the reason why I'm giving this class is not for you to have a good marriage. It's not for you to have a great marriage. It's for you to have an awesome marriage. In order to do that, you have to do things that go against what you think. So a man has to come home, put his phone down, and ask his wife 3 questions. Question number 1, what did you do today? And if you know something specific that she did today, you ask her something that has to do with that. Number 2, what's in your mind? And number 3, how do you feel? And if she says, fine, she's not fine. You keep digging in until you find out what's going on. All 3 questions deal with different parts. What do you do today deals with her fingers, the physical part of her. What's in your mind deals with the intellect. And how do you feel deals with your heart. You're dealing with 3 aspects. And you have to sit there and you have to listen for at least 15 seconds. No, I'm kidding. You have to sit there and listen. I was again in Chicago this past week. A woman came up to me after my class. And she was telling me that her husband, she'll be talking to her husband, and he'll just walk out on her. She'll be talking, she'll just walk out. And I said to her, I've done it to my wife. My wife said to me a few times, can you just walk out? And I'm like, I had no idea. I wasn't thinking, because I start talking, and the women have to understand, we only have so much bandwidth. We're easy creatures. We need 3 things: food, sex, and respect. Everything else is a bonus. But we don't have these minds, you guys need to talk, and we can't talk that much. I'm not taking questions now. We can't talk that much. You have to limit how much you speak to us. So we come home and ask us 2 questions. That's pretty good. I mean, most guys will tell you, rather go out and mow the lawn than answer 3 questions. Most guys rather get a colonoscopy than have to answer 3 questions. But the fact your wife knows that you're asking 3 questions, the fact that she knows you're thinking about it, the fact that she knows that it's in your mind, in your kishkas, that's going to build that emotional connection to your wife. The most important thing for us to do as men is to build that emotional connection to the wife. Because that emotional connection is what builds the love. And when we make her happy, she's going to make us happy. So you have to show attention to your wife always. And when we show the attention to you, they're going to show that attention back to you. Attention, affection, appreciation, and awareness. Affection. How we speak, not just physical attention, which means if you're married and you're a time of the month that you can be with your spouse, you need to be physical with them. It's not just the act of physicality, but in the kitchen, When you hand them a knife, you rub their hands, you walk by them in the kitchen, you rub their back, whatever it is, they need that physical attention. So do we. We need it also. And the more we give to you, the more they're going to give to us. And your words, always affectionate. Never yell at your spouse. Never yell at your spouse. And I know this is a big issue in a lot of relationships. And I used to yell until I really learned that's a avodah zarah. Because when you're yelling, when you get upset, you're saying, God, you made a mistake. What's happening is not supposed to happen to me. And since God doesn't make a mistake, there's no reason to yell. You can get upset. You need to find tools in order to stop yelling. Because I don't know if you realize this, but it does no good. Nothing positive comes from yelling. Nothing good comes when you yell at your kids. Nothing good comes when you yell at your spouse. The reason why I call this book Infinite Marriage, because I take my marriage and I put it on a pedestal. Just like we put the ark in the Torah, we put the Torah in the ark, I put my marriage in that ark. And I make sure every decision I make in my life is based on, is this good for my marriage or bad for my marriage? Is this good for my kids' marriage or their grandkids' marriage and their grandkids' marriage? Because if you want your kids to have a great marriage, the only way for that to happen is for you to show them a great marriage. And when you yell, that is not showing them a great marriage. So your words should always be affectionate. Attention, affection, appreciation. Always show appreciation to your spouse. I know there are women out there saying, my husband doesn't do anything, but I don't respect him because he doesn't do anything, I can't show him appreciation. You treat him like a man you respect, and he'll become a man you respect. Find something to respect him for, and he's going to love that appreciation. Honey, I love it when you sit on the couch and smoke a cigar and drink a beer while I'm cooking Shabbat dinner for 12 hours in the kitchen and changing 8 diapers. I really appreciate getting out of my way. You don't have to be that, like that, but you know what I'm talking about? Find something to appreciate him for. And if he offers to sit at the table, you take him up on it, even though you know that it's a mess. And he does everything backwards. It doesn't matter. And when he's finished sitting at the table, you don't criticize him for it. When he turns around, you fix it the way you like it. Marriage is nuanced, and we have to make sure that we respect our husband and show them appreciation. Because when we more appreciate when we show them, the more they're going to want to have appreciation. Same thing with your wife. If your wife burns the chicken, honey, that was delicious chicken. You have to wait on the questions. I love questions, but I got to keep going. Attention, affection, appreciation, awareness. What's awareness? Awareness of your spouse's needs. I live in Jerusalem, and I walk everywhere. I don't have a car. So I walk the old city lot to teach. I didn't realize this, but the iPhone has a thing that keeps counting the steps. I finally figured this out like 3 months ago. And I'm walking like 6-7 miles a day. And my socks get a lot of holes in them. And I didn't say anything to my wife. I just like, all my socks have holes in them. That's what I said to myself. Next thing I know, Amazon's at my front door with a bag of socks. My wife ordered them. I didn't ask her. She heard me. And I'll get a text. I'll hear my wife in the kitchen like, oh, I'm running out of flour. I'm running out of yeast. My wife makes challahs every single week. My wife's challahs are awesome, I gotta tell you. I mean, the whole thing when we have a lot of students at our house, and like the kids are like, stay away from the challah, stay away from the challah, because that's all you eat. You don't get the chicken, the fish, because challahs, we call it crack challah. It's so good. But if I hear her say flour, I think to myself, I have to get her flour, and I can't wait, because I know she needs it. My awareness, I know my wife needs yeast and flour every single week. Now, certain things I know, like, okay, let's say the chair breaks. Okay, I'll get it fixed by the end of the month. I'm not so stark on that, because I know that can wait. But when I know my wife needs something, I get it, and I don't wait. Because I put that marriage on. That marriage is an infinite marriage for me. And I want to keep that emotional connection to my wife strong. And when I do things for my wife, she knows about it. Okay. I want to talk about sunscreen love. Yeah, sunscreen love. Anyone here go to the beach? You go to the beach? Do you ever put sunscreen on? You don't do it, do you? Sunscreen. So I used to go, and I was living in Virginia, I used to go to Dewey Beach, Delaware. It was like a lot of young people used to go, and it'd be like a lot of young people playing volleyball, and it was fun for me. So I go in the morning, I put SPF 15 or 30 on, and I'd be playing all day on the beach, playing in the waves, taking walks, taking a nap, having lunch, whatever I was doing. I come back to my house in the afternoon, and what would happen? I'd be burnt. What happened? What happened? The sunscreen wore off. I forgot to reapply. Love is the exact same way. When you're young, in your 20s and 30s, you get married, we love. It's easy. Guess what happens? You get busy in life, you have kids, you have hobbies, you have jobs. If you don't romance the relationship, if you don't reapply the love in the relationship, your relationship will burn. I know men in their 40s and 50s that have gotten divorce letters from their wife's attorneys, and they had no idea the relationship was faltering. Fairly common, by the way. What happened? They forgot to work on the relationship. They forgot to romance the relationship. Romance is the act of taking that infatuation, lust, and desire and turning it into love. If you don't work on it, your relationship will burn. And that relationship, that love, that romance is based on the 4 A's: attention, affection, appreciation, and awareness. And it's based on one more concept. I grew up in an Ashkenazi house. It was secular, but my mom used to criticize me a lot. May she rest in peace. And you don't realize that you criticize. Like, we do it without even thinking about it. I don't know if it's an Ashkenazi thing or a Jewish thing. Maybe it's anyone. Maybe it's Italians. I have no idea. We criticize, and we don't think about it. It becomes now just criticize, criticize, criticize. But every time you criticize your spouse, what you're doing is you're wiping the sunscreen off. There's an idea that you can criticize 20% of the time, say, positive things 80% of the time. I say with your spouse, you shoot for 100-0. Why? Because you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be perfect, but you should be shooting 100% of the time that you're not going to criticize your spouse. You're going to compliment them. Complimenting your spouse will put sunscreen on. It will build the love in the relationship. And we don't think about this. I was coaching a girl. She came to us for Shabbat dinner. She was in her 40s, and she just had a date. She just became religious in the last few years. She moved to Israel, and she wanted to date with this Sephardi guy. And he's not like religious, but it's kind of. Sephardi people like sometimes, I think Sephardi shul, right? So they're at a restaurant, and he goes to, they're having bread, I guess, and he goes to wash. He washes his hand, comes back to the table, and he starts to eat his bread. And she says to him, "Aren't you going to say a bracha?" And he's like, "No." And she goes, "You know you're supposed to say a bracha." He's like, "Okay." And I said to her, the relationship obviously didn't work. I said to her, "Do you know you criticized him?" She goes, "No, I didn't." I'm like, "Yes, you did. You criticized him." "No, I didn't. I just told him, why didn't you say bracha?" I go, "You don't think it's criticism, but he's taking it as criticism." And we do this all the time in a relationship. You say things to your spouse, and you don't think it's criticism, but it's criticism. Because you have to be able to see things from someone else's perspective. You want to have a passionate relationship in your life, think something from someone else's perspective. Just like we talked earlier about, when you go into a relationship, you have to have a common definition of love, because you have a different perspective than the person you're going to marry, and if you're not on the same page, you're going to have a problem. Perspective is everything. So I compliment my wife constantly. I don't criticize. Do I make mistakes? Yes. But I have a little song that I sing in my house, and it really helps me to remember to compliment my wife. Compliment, don't criticize. Compliment, don't criticize. Or she'll find another guy. Compliment, don't criticize. Or she'll poke you in the eye. Compliment, don't criticize. Or he'll say, "Bye, bye, bye." Compliment, don't criticize. Live under sunny skies. Thank you. I'll be here next week. Actually, I won't, but I could be.
That song is in the book?
This song is not in the book. Sorry, not everything's in the book. Every time you compliment your spouse, you're putting sunscreen on. Every time you criticize them, you're wiping it off. People always ask me, because, again, I didn't start learning Torah until my mid-40s. And people say, "How did you become religious?" I said, "I had a big job in the city, working for the dollar every night and day. This old rabbi told me I was fit to be holy. Get yourself a Bible, son, and see what it say. Instead of getting her the roses, get yourself the 5 books of Moses. Learn it from the Torah." Well, I read a bit about creation, the Garden of Eden, and Adam and Eve, Cain slew Abel, Noah's boat was stable. The more I read, the more I believe. The reason why we got big noses is to stick them in the 5 books of Moses. Learn it from the Torah. Thank you. Huh?
Were you a singer in another life or in
I used to sing. It's funny. It's true. I used to be in chorus when I was in high school and elementary school. Anyway, thank you. I actually was a very good pianist, and I wanted to start bringing piano into my act because I was excellent in piano. Anyway, I want to give you another idea. Because relationships they're not easy. But if you have this wisdom I'm giving you today, you'll be able to manage anything. So I talked about perspective. So you have to have the idea that whatever is important to your spouse has to be important to you. You have to make what's important to them important to you. And it's not so easy all the time. So when I first got married, my wife wanted to go see these modern dance shows. And I'd go with her. I don't really like it, but I go because I knew it was important to her. That's easy, right? And she'd come with me to see the symphony at Kennedy Center in DC. That's easy. But this is where it gets a little more interesting. In my family, I do all the cooking. I like to cook, but I'm also kind of a neat freak. So when I'm done cooking, I take all the dishes and I put them in the sink. And my wife, after dinner, will clean. My wife kindly asked me, can you please place the sharp knives on the side of the sink? Does that seem like a simple request? Not for me. See, from my perspective, my counters are dirty if there's a dirty knife on the sink. And the counters, I want to make sure everything's in the sink. So I didn't do it. Then I'd grab 7 small forks because at the time I had 5 little kids, and I grabbed 7 small forks. How you doing? 7 small, and I put them on the table for everyone. And my wife kindly asked me, can you please bring me a large fork? So I take the small fork, I go up in the kitchen, grab a large fork and give it to her. And after this happening a number of times, kept happening, I said to myself, Daniel, because that's my name, I said, why can't I do what my wife wants? Why can't I bring her a large fork? Why can't I leave the sharp knives in the sink? You see, from my perspective, I don't care what fork I eat with. From my perspective, I give it a large fork, a small fork, toothpicks, tongs, tweezers, my fingers. I don't care what fork I eat with. But here's the problem. I'm not living with myself. I'm living with somebody else. Marriage is not about me. Marriage is about we. And I have to see things from her perspective. So I started changing. I said, you know what? Just bring her a large fork. Just leave the sharp knives on the side of the sink. Was it hard for me to do? No, that was easy. But you know what was hard? My ego. Because I didn't want to change. Because from my perspective, I thought I was right. And from my perspective, I am right. I don't care what fork I eat with. Invite me to your house and give me some toothpicks. I'll toothpick. I'll eat with them. Tweezers, fine. But I'm not living with myself. I'm living with somebody else. And I have to see things from their perspective. So I had to get over my ego. Because in a relationship, your ego is not your amigo. I'm serious. It will destroy relationships. You know what ego stands for? Exiting God out. Because I said, when you have anger, when we talk about anger, when you have anger, you're saying, God, you made a mistake. And I don't believe God makes mistakes. Everything that happens to me is for a reason. My wife does something I don't like. It's for me to learn, it's for me to grow from. I can't change her, but I can change my reaction to her. And if you show that emotional connection to your wife, if you pay attention to those 3 things, those 3 questions you ask, if you respect your husbands, you're going to build a passionate relationship. I'm going to give you one last idea. Take a message for me, please. I'm going to give you one last message, one idea about showing respect. When I come home from work, I used to work, now I just teach. When I come home from teaching, my wife will be on the phone and she'll say, Sarah, I have to get off the phone now. Click, hi honey. I go, hey, how you doing? That is a game changer in my life. Why? My wife is stopping what she's doing, recognizing I'm walking in and getting off the phone. We need to be respected. That's all we ask. That's all we ask for. We're simple beings. We're not that difficult. By the way, my wife doesn't talk on the phone. She's faking. And I know she's faking, and I don't care. I'm happy to walk in, my wife get off the phone and pretend she's faking on the phone. Because to me, that shows me she cares about me. Because she wants to have a passionate relation with me, and she knows I need to be respected. And I know she needs to be loved. And I have to figure out what the love language, which by the way is in my book, the love language for my wife is. And for my wife, it's me coming home and connecting to her, asking those 3 questions. We can all have a passionate relationship. The ability is there. You just have to have the wisdom. It starts off with understanding. When you're in the dating world, you got to be able to listen to the person you're going out with. Internalize it, understand it, especially as men. We're not as good about that. But you have to also realize that we can only handle so much of what you're saying. There's got to be a fine balance. And then when you get to the research phase, you're learning about someone, you're not going to find all the skeletons in the closet. That's a fact. I said that. You're not going to find them all. There are things about your spouse you're going to marry that you're not going to like. There is friction, there is turbulence in every single relationship. Every single one. I haven't talked about this all over last week, but I'll give you an analogy I learned from Adrienne Gold. She's an educator of momentum in Israel. And she says like this: when do you get divorced? Imagine you're in a car accident and you hurt your leg, and you go to the hospital and they tell you, you have two choices. We can save the leg, we're gonna have an operation, 6 months of physical training, physical therapy, another operation, maybe some more physical therapy, and maybe a third operation. It's gonna take 2 to 3 years and be very painful. Or we can chop the leg off now. What are you gonna do? Most of us are gonna try to save the leg. But after 2 or 3 years, if it's so painful and you see no end in sight, then you get divorced. But until then, you handle the pain. Every relationship is going to go through friction. And you have to do the work and you have to handle the pain, and you'll get through it if you have someone to guide you. My blessing to you is that you all have a passionate relationship. You all bring God down into your life. You show your wives love by understanding what their needs are. Pies, physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. But the most important thing for you guys to know, they want an emotional connection to us. And that means we have to become vulnerable and open up and talk to them and listen to them. And women, you have to understand that we're easy beings. We just need to be respected. We need food and sex, which are good too. But we need to be respected. And when you understand these concepts, you will have an unbelievable relationship. My blessing to you is that you may take this wisdom, bring it home with you, internalize it. It's all in my book, Infinite Marriage. It's also in my podcast, Living in Clarity. A lot of this stuff's on the podcast, plus some self-esteem, plus lots of other stuff. You gotta have a coach. I mean, I don't have to be your coach, but like, I don't understand how you can go into a relationship nowadays without having someone guiding you. There's too much stuff being thrown our ways. If you don't have a good rabbi, or rebbitzin, or coach, you need someone to guide you. By the way, the average Fortune 500 company spends $400 million a month on consultants. Why? Because it helps their bottom line. When do people who are married get consultants? When things are falling apart. Don't wait for that to happen. You start learning now, before you're dating, understand what passion, the 4 phases of love, and you too will have a passionate, loving relationship with one person the rest of your life. Thank you very much.